Hello, friends. Welcome to our first TBR of 2025. It is time to play our first round of Timmies for the year, and hopefully Timmies decides to start the year off on a good note. For those that are newer to the channel and maybe haven't seen Timmy's TBR before, it is my TBR game that I play every single month to pick what I need to read in the month. Timmy's can sometimes be nice, can sometimes not. It really depends on how it wants to go, and we are always here for the chaos of Timmy's. Once a book goes on Timmy's TBR, it must be read to come off of it or DNF'd if that so happens. But because it is the new year and it is the start of the new year, I have 4 books that I did not get to on my last TBR that I am going to clear and just start the year afresh and anew. So we have no rollovers this month, thank goodness. So grab your coffee, grab your Timmies if you so choose, if you live near a Tim Hortons, and sit down and let's see what the first roll of Timmy's has in store for us this month. Roll number 1 is an 8. Gets us a donut space and the prompt of a baking romance. As you may have noticed, the cards on Timmy's got a spruce for the new year. They used to be just cards that I wrote on, and I decided to get them nice and printed and laminated and ready to start the year off strong with fresh new cards and some fresh new prompts. Some of the prompts are the same, but I did update the game a little bit to hold prompts that are more inclusive to the reading that I currently do. However, this prompt is a repeat from the old game because I do still love a baking romance. For this one, I'm going to be reading Queerly Beloved by Susie Dumond. This book is on my 25 and 25 list, so I am already starting on one of those lists. And also, this has been on my shelf for about 6 months and has been eyeballing me ever since. In this book, we follow Amy, and Amy is our baker in this book. And she is finally starting to move on in her life, move on from her ex and start a new relationship with Charlie. Her family is just really excited to see this happen. There seemed to have been a lot in her past that was keeping her from moving on with love and starting her life over again. And now she finally is. But then one time she decides to sub in for a bridesmaid and do some baking for a wedding. And that turns into a full-time baking business with weddings. And she starts to feel kind of overwhelmed with the amount of work that is now in her lap. And she's trying to juggle her relationship and juggle her new business. And things are starting to get a little bit rocky in there. And we'll see how it all shakes out throughout the book. Roll number 2 is a 7. Gets us a 10-bit space. And the prompt of book that matches my outfit. So for the prompt of book that matches my outfit, I am wearing a green sweater today, and I'm going with a book that I need to read where the character on the front is also wearing a green sweater. I feel like that matches. We have matching outfits, and that is out on the limb. The companion romance to this book, Oat in the Woods, is going to be the B&K Book Club book for February, and I haven't read the first book yet. I have heard such fabulous things about this book, and it's been on my TBR for so long, and now's the time to do it. You do not have to read this book to read the sequel next month because they are like independent standalones. I mean, you'll know who the couples are, but that's it. However, I do really want to read them in order, and we do have a bonus Discord buddy read going on in B&K in the month of January for this book. So if you haven't read it and are interested, the link to the B&K Discord is down below if you want to read it with me and Kelsey and everybody else who are reading it in the month of January. Now, this book does have a few things in it that I'm not sure I'm going to like, one of that being an unexpected pregnancy, but it's right in the synopsis that that's how this relationship starts. And I have heard to trust the process, that Hannah Bottom Young does it correctly, but that is a trope I don't typically love. But I have also heard that the representation in this book is top tier, as I believe both of our main characters have a physical disability. Winnie has a limb difference, I think with her hand, and I know that Bo has an amputated leg. So that's really great to see in a romance. I love seeing representation, and again, I've heard it's done very well in this book as well. So I know that it starts with them having a one-night stand at a party. She falls pregnant, and then their relationship kind of starts from there. Again, that's not a trope I typically like, but I am going to trust the author with this one because I have read one other book by this author, Next of Kin, and I loved it. So I do have high hopes for this, especially since most people sing this book's praises. Roll number 3 is a 6 and gets us a series space. Now for a series space, I can work on any series that I am currently reading that I want to make progress on. The series I've decided to work on is the Meant to Be series because the next book is about to come out in a few months and I do have the arc for it, but I haven't read the book prior. Now you don't have to read these in order because they are independent standalones written by different authors and they are all fairy tale retellings. But the one I need to read is Tangled Up in You by Christina Lauren. This is obviously a Rapunzel retelling. I have loved 2 books in this series. One did not hit, and that was the one right before this one, but I do really like Christina Lauren's writing, so I have high hopes for this one. This has also been decided to be my Patreon book club book for the months of January and February. It makes sense that the Land of Fairy Tales would read a fairy tale retelling for our book club. So even though this is going on January's TBR, I may read this close to the end of January or even in February. This may roll into February just to be closer to the live show discussion for this book. However, I do think that it may be time for a rewatch of Tangled in order to see all the nods to this story and really have that movie fresh in my mind, because these do tend to sit closer to the Disney versions of the stories than like the original source material. In this version, we follow Wren and Fitz. Wren has lived on like a family homestead and off the grid her entire life. She is now 22. She's never seen an iPhone. She's never had an iPad. She has no idea what's going on. But she gets accepted to college and she is now going off to college and really in for a rude awakening of what the world is like. There at college, she meets Fitz and he has his whole life planned out until Wren comes crashing into it. They are paired up for an assignment in their immunology class, and this sends them off on quite the adventure, including a road trip. Hence the car on the front, I guess. Roll number 4 is a 7. That gets us a coffee space. And the prompt of Booktuber pick. Well, I am now going to give my TBR choice over to a fellow Booktuber. And since this is January, and January is TBR-a-thon, I thought, who best than the creator of TBR-a-thon, Leandra the TBR Zero. I messaged Leandra, and Leandra so kindly came on StreamYard with me to film telling me what she wants me to read for my TBR. So let's cut to that clip of me finding out what the heck I'm going to be reading for this prompt. Well, I think I accidentally wore a TBR Harvester.
I was going to say, I was like, look at you.
This was accidental, but like we can just lean into the fact that like I have your merch on and now you're going to recommend me a book. So Leandra, what do you have for me? I am both nervous and excited.
I don't know who's more nervous. I think, honestly, I would argue I am because this is a book that I'm currently reading.
Ooh.
So I'm not done with it yet, but as I've been reading it, and you can actually ask Danny this, I told her this feels like Brittany would really like this. Like, I feel like this could potentially be a Danny book, or it could be potentially a Brittany book. So here's the book, Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So hear me out. It is sci-fi, and obviously you enjoy sci-fi. The main character is a robot, and think of Moss Cap here. We love Moss Cap. And there's a bit of a twist. It's very humorous. There are cozy vibes to this, but so far, where I'm at in the novel, unfortunately, Charles, our valet, he kills his master. He doesn't mean to. Something happens, and now he's like, what do I do? And he's basically going on a journey to try to figure out his purpose in life. And he says that he wants to serve and help humans, and he doesn't know how to do that. We're also playing around with agency. There's another character that keeps telling him, you are a person. You're a robot, but you have personhood. And he's grappling with that, realizing that he does have choice. And I think that you'd really appreciate this. It is set in like a bit of a dystopian world, so there are serious themes, but the character development, and I think you'd really enjoy it. So
that really does sound like a me book. It really, really does. It really does. It really gives me Song for the Wild Built vibes, which really makes me very excited. Well, Leandra did an excellent job describing the synopsis of this book, so I'm just going to leave it there. But a cozy-ish dystopian sci-fi that gives me Psalm for the Wild Built vibes. Leandra, thank you so much for bringing this book to my attention because I am so excited to read this book. I've already acquired a copy on my Kindle, so I am ready to read this in the month of January, and I'm actually very excited because this really does sound like a me book. Leandra, I think you've hit this right on the head. And our fifth roll is a 7 and gets us to the end of the board and a mood read. Well, we got to the end of the board in 5 rolls, which I think is actually like the smallest number you can actually do to get to the end of the board. I mean, maybe you can, if you rolled like all 12s, get there faster, but I'll take it. For my mood read, I am going to put the B&K Book Club book because Out on a Limb is a bonus read. We do actually have our actual book club read for January, and that is What the Wife Knew by Darby Kane. This is Kelsey's pick, so the sprints will be on Kelsey's channel. I will link Kelsey down below, and also the B&K Discord is linked down below if you want to come read this with us. We will have sprints specifically for this, and we will have a chat on the Discord about this thriller. Darby Kane has been mixed for me. There have been books that I loved, and the last time we read it for B&K, I did not love it. So I'm hoping this is its redemption time. In this book, we follow Dr. Doherty's wife because he is now dead from a fall down the stairs, and his neighbor is pointing the finger at the wife. But that is not the only person pointing the finger at the new wife. The ex-wife, his high school sweetheart, and the mother of his children is also starting to think that she had something to do with the death of her ex-husband. The authorities are starting to circle in. The town is choosing sides. It sounds like it's a little bit of a small town situation, which I do enjoy. And I'm interested to see if the obvious is the case and did the wife have something to do with it? Was it an accident? Is there somebody else involved? We'll all find out together for B&K. Now, that is the end of my TBR for Timmies. However, there are a couple books that I need to read as part of read-alongs that did not fit on the TBR. I am currently in the middle of 2 read-alongs, one publicly over on the B&K Discord and one in my Patreon, reading some very large fantasy series. One of those being Hero of Ages and the Cosmere. My patrons and I are reading through the Cosmere, and we are now at Hero of Ages. We are doing Brandon Sanderson's recommended order, so this is the 3rd book we will be reading, and I'm hoping to get to this in January, as well as the public B&K read-along of Wheel of Time. We are going into A Crown of Swords, and I will be starting this momentarily. Actually, by the time you see this video, I will probably have already started reading this book. My goal is to read this all in January. Sometimes these books do take a little bit longer because they are large. However, we are starting to get to the smaller books in this series. This one is, I think, under 800 pages. It's under 750. Which I know is still big, but in comparison, this is like tiny. So I'm also going to be reading those 2 books in the month of January. But here is the official January's TBR. We have 5 physical reads and 2 Kindle reads in survival mode and Hero of Ages. 7 books. A lot of them are romances and thrillers, so they will read very quickly. I have high hopes for starting the year off with a finished TBR. Come on back next month and find out. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video but have nothing to say to me down in the comments, leave me a robot emoji for Leandra's pick of service model. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.